Welcome to What's Left, a weekly political discussion challenging the mainstream left. I'm Eduardo Abarca with Andy Lipson, and today we'll be discussing the topic of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Today, this morning, British time, Julian Assange was arrested. Originally, we had planned to do a different topic, but this time...
Algeria. The revolution or the uprising taking place in Algeria and what you describe as sort of the African Spring.
Mm-hmm. And as well as Sudan, currently.
Yeah, and Mozambique. Is something happening there?
I'm not able to speak to that right now,
Okay.
but there might be something. There's a lot going on in Africa that we should cover, so we're going to do that. But the current news always shifts in our program. Yeah. Julian Assange. So he was arrested by British police, invited by Lenin Moreno, the current president that was elected in 2017 last year, 2 years ago.
So-called socialist.
Mm-hmm. In Ecuador, invited to inside the embassy to arrest Julian Assange, who has been living there for almost 7 years.
Not just living, he's been on asylum there.
Yes, an asylum there for almost 7 years, granted by the previous president of the Ecuador, as well as what other just minuscule fact there is to say that he has been having health problems as well, and he hasn't been given the proper treatment. And for a time, he was allowed to do his own thing, to continue his operations for WikiLeaks, but eventually he was even prohibited from even touching a computer.
Right.
Eventually.
And what the British say they're going in there to get him for is for a bail violation of some sort.
Right.
So he didn't show up to a hearing around, I think it was around
Sweden.
the sexual misconduct and sexual harassment and rape charges that he'd been in Sweden. And at that point, Julian Assange was concerned that if he showed up to that bail hearing, he would be extradited to the United States. He seeks asylum with the Ecuadorian government and gets it, and he's been there ever since. And at the very same time that the British were going in to get him, the U.S. Released, basically opened up the case for extraditing Julian Assange, like on the same day. So these things seem very tied together.
I'm just going to read very quickly just this that I wrote. Assange supporters packed the London court where he appeared on charges of jumping bail in 2012. Rather than face extradition to Sweden, Assange claimed that the USA would seek his extradition if he was in Swedish custody.
Right.
The ACLU condemned any prosecution by the USA for WikiLeaks operations because it would be unprecedented and unconstitutional, and opened the door to criminal investigation and other news investigations.
Right.
This is, well, I consider him to be a journalist. People can say different ways, but he is really being used under, we will say later on, but under Obama administration, now the Trump administration. So this is why it's very important. We're not just discussing some journalist. This is someone that has had a great effect in the USA. And we also, I'm sure, we will be discussing Chelsea Manning. It has a connection to it. Oh, yes, mia. That's a lot, isn't it? A mouthful. Reactions, I suppose, if we want to go in that direction, do you want to go with it?
Well, I think it's an awful thing that's happened. I think that the U.S. to claim that basically the U.S. is punishing this guy for exposing the U.S. war in Afghanistan and exposing the crimes of the U.S. war in Afghanistan, exposing the crimes in the war in Iraq, embarrassing cables between the United States and Western powers that showed sort of how cynical these politicians are, how they lie behind our backs. He's showed how NSA was in the past. He's shown how NSA is spying on the French, spying on the Brazilian government.
That's right.
He exposed the language around TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the thing that the Clintons were trying to pass that was free trade with China and the United States. and that helped sink it. And also Vault 7, which was all this exposures around how the CIA was using all sorts of dirty tricks electronically to basically plant evidence on people to make them seem like they were hackers, and just a whole bevy of electronic dirty tricks that the CIA has at its disposal and has used and plans to use. It's called Vault 7. And of course, recently, all of the findings around Clinton and the Democratic Party and the DNC. So he has, I think this has been talked about as an attack on journalism. Journalism, and particularly mainstream journalism, is so weak and so craven. I don't want to call it an attack on journalism. Journalism's already given up mainstream journalism. To me, what it is it's an attack on anybody who's independent, who's actually got their own view. It's a continuation of the stuff we've talked about when they went after Alex Jones, of the stuff they've talked about, how the left has gone, how Google, Facebook, Twitter, how the corporate attack to shut down the voices of independent voices. This is a continuation of the state, and particularly the U.S. state, in conjunction with the Ecuadorian state, in conjunction with the British state, basically closing the space down on anyone who's going to try to act independently and who's going to act in a way where they're going to try to expose the crimes that these states commit. Because remember, they're not saying he's giving false information. That would be the mainstream media, which has given 2 years of false information around Russiagate. So the U.S. doesn't care about false information. What they care about actually is truthful information, and they care about information that they can't control. And that's why this guy has to go down, I think. And it's very disconcerting. I really feel like a noose is strangling, is coming around independent voices, and the left is getting strangled. And Julian Assange, this happening to Julian Assange, is very worrying to me. And people they talk about fascism and the white nationalists. My biggest concern really is this kind of stuff: is the U.S. state strengthening itself to close down the space for opposition, particularly in the context of what is now a growing strike wave of teachers. We've had the largest amount of strikes since the 1980s in this country, and at the very same time, I find that the space is being closed down to say anything in real opposition, to say anything that really exposes the interests of people in power. That kind of space is being shut down immensely. So everyone should oppose what's happening here, and I just think it's very worrisome.
Yeah. I should mention that later during the day I was following this on KPFA, and there was a press conference after the arrest of Julian Assange, which, by the way, there is a video that I invite everyone to see on YouTube, where you can clearly see Julian Assange being dragged out of the embassy as he is yelling out and saying the UK, speaking to the people, should resist.
Yeah.
And he kept saying resistance. And just later today he said that he was very grateful and thankful for his supporters for supporting him back in the courts. The press conference revealed that during the day that
Which press conference?
There was in London.
Yeah.
Of
his
lawyer.
Yeah.
And there was another one, a prosecutor as well. And they were revealing that he was indicted because they're extraditing. The charges that he was conspiring with Chelsea Manning to be able to hack into military computers, which is what they're trying to pin him on. And this has been a plot that they've been trying to do for years, really, because they don't want to go on a charge of revealing or taking on revelatory news like the press normally does when you have a leak, because if they did that, that could be completely unprecedented for a lot of, you'd be having to indict a lot of press journalists. And this is what they are now tagging to. I suspect that once they will extradite him, they will then have more charges, additional on him.
Yeah.
And right now, as we know, as Chelsea Manning is currently in prison for not cooperating with the USA government. And
Because they're trying to use Chelsea Manning to get him.
yes.
Yeah.
And so now we have these two people who really, I would say that Chelsea Manning, a wonderful whistleblower.
Yeah.
And
Heroes.
Yes. And I was also reading that Reporters Without Borders, the head of Reporters Without Borders, additionally with ACLU, was saying that they condemn this because this is completely, this could be something that any government really, if Iran, North Korea, or any government, Russia, wanted to extradite any journalist because they're reporting on them, which, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're going to, how far, what is the limit to be able to extradite a foreign journalist for reporting on things, on crimes committed by this country, on military crimes, and for even what we saw with Saudi Arabia, what happened with Khashoggi. So we really, this is a fine line for this. We have to really closely watch this, what is going to happen with Julian Assange, which I'm sure everyone is watching at this moment. And I wanted to just read Edward Snowden's tweet that he had tweeted out this today. He says that the images of the Ecuador's ambassador inviting the UK secret police into the embassy to drag a publisher of Like It or Not, award-winning journalism, out of the building are going to end up in the history books. And this is what he's tweeted to his nearly 4 million followers. As such, critics may cheer, but this is a dark moment for press freedom. What else can I say apart to that? Edward Snowden himself is an asylum,
He's a political refugee.
Refugee, yes, thank you. A political refugee, thank you, Andy, in Russia. And so he has been known for also leaking the NSA tracking of the USA on civilians. And gosh, so there's a lot that I think that this is, again, I just want to restate the importance of this case.
Yeah, and again, I don't think we do have a free press, so that isn't. I mean, I agree with Edward Snowden. This is a dark day. We don't have a free press. The mainstream press is complicit in what's happened to him. I mean, by and large, this guy, he used to be a hero to the left for exposing all the surveillance state, exposing the imperialism. He was considered a hero. But once he came out against the liberal darling Bill Clinton, and once he actually exposed their criminality, because they are criminals, they're crooks on both the Republican side and the Democrat side, and he exposed the Democrat side, then the left basically said, well, you know, they basically said he was a Russian agent. They filed for the McCarthyism, and now he's become public enemy number one of a person who's subverting the state, and we have the left actually backing the forces of our security apparatus to grab this guy and to bring him to justice. And so that's really bad. And the mainstream media has been complicit in this. I think they are going to say some things about like, well, this is very chilling, but honestly, I think they support this because I think they support the idea of squeezing out and knocking out the independent voices. Who was the guy who did the Pentagon Papers?
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Well, Daniel Ellsberg. Daniel Ellsberg did the Pentagon Papers, and these were things that exposed the criminality behind the Vietnam War and how there was, I think in the Pentagon Papers, that it's where the whole thing, the Gulf of Tonkin was exposed, that the U.S. kind of set up the start of their entrance into that war, and other elements of it. And this was stuff given to him by CIA people that he leaked to the New York Times. The New York Times printed it, and Daniel Ellsberg is considered a hero now. Well, Julian Assange does the very same thing along with Chelsea Manning, and now he's being hounded by the United States. And if this happens, any whistleblower who approaches a reporter, that reporter is going to have to know that you are risking you're going to have to be in asylum trying to hide from the United States if you try to expose what the United States is doing. So the U.S. knows what they're doing. They're basically trying to, they know they intend to do more illegality, more criminality, but they'd like to get away with it, and they'd like to get away with it without it being exposed. And the mainstream media is not a concern for them. They are not at all concerned the mainstream media is gonna get them. So the voices they have to knock out are people like Julian Assange and people and make it impossible for whistleblowers like Edward Snowden to find allies in the press. People like Glenn Greenwald, who is now essentially, he's stuck in Brazil, right? He's not in the United States anymore.
Because his partner is, he's having lots of issues with the government.
Right. So I mean, even they have been hounded because of his work in exposing the illegality, These people are exposing crimes, and like I was watching Fox News. I was kind of wondering what Fox News was going to say about this, because they loved him back in the day when he was exposing, Clinton and stuff like that.
Trump said he loves WikiLeaks.
And Trump is. I want to say something about Trump too, but you can say something.
No,
too.
I don't have much.
Okay, I'm going to say something about Trump this time. So they were like, well, would you want your private emails gone into? Would you want somebody who's going in there and he broke into these places and exposed this stuff as if he's coming to you and me like regular citizens, and that's such a joke. Like, we're talking about the highest levels of power in the world, that this guy is getting access to their information that they're trying to hide from us, and he's revealing it. And they're trying to act like he's going into people's houses and rummaging through their emails and trying to send everyone stuff. No, he's not going after private citizens. He's going after these states and exposing to us for our benefit, so we can actually know how our democracy works. He's letting us see what's actually really taking place. And I just think it's completely cowardly on the part of, whatever, Fox News, who cares? Mm-hmm. The one I'm going to call out a little bit, or not a little bit, like Trump. They asked him, so what do you think? Because what did Trump said? I love WikiLeaks.
Right.
I love WikiLeaks.
I heard what he had said.
And then a woman reporter went like, do you still love WikiLeaks? And he goes, I don't know WikiLeaks. And here's what I say about this. To me, that's not stupid. That just shows, to me, that shows two things. One is he's a coward, and two, he's a coward. He can't stand up for anything he says there. But the other thing is, it shows that he is essentially caught by the establishment. He's basically, those are words given to him by Mike Pompeo, as far as I'm concerned, by the guy who's running the CIA. Because the person who really has it in for Julian Assange is not Donald Trump. It's the head of the CIA, who called him a non-state kind of terrorist type, non-state enemy, and so that to me is Trump basically saying, and I'd said this in last time around Russiagate, when we were talking about that saying that I felt like the deep state now had him. This is for me more evidence that Trump is basically completely collected by the deep state, because he's now their mouthpiece, and he's now saying whatever he needs to say in order to justify what the deep state wants to do with any of these characters. So if there was even an ounce of anti-establishment in Trump back in 2016, that's gone, squeezed out, and over. And now he's just an establishment shill.
And I will just add that if anyone questioned, because all the Democrats that I know of here in San Francisco and in California in general were very upset that Julian Assange, they thought he was really against the Democrats. Well, I think now just seeing that I don't know what excuse Democrats have to say, because Republicans, right, this is the Trump administration, has just got Julian Assange in their hand. Well, very close now. They're just using their allies in the UK, no?
Yep.
So you can just clearly see that he was not acting as any Russia agent or any conspiring with the Republican Party. When we had talked about this over the phone, and I said that when Julian Assange was being asked by Alan Nair, I think a very respected, award-winning journalist on Democracy Now!, Alan Nair disappointed me just a little bit in this area. But he said,
I don't know this guy.
yeah, he said to, by the way, he was in East Timor with Amy Goodman when they were trying to document the mass murders of East Timorians. East Timorians? Is this how you say East Timor? Well, and it didn't get a lot of coverage. And there was, the USA had a relationship with East Timor at the time. So anyhow, Alan Nair had asked Julian Assange, you're saying that Trump is better? Clinton is surely better than Trump. And Julian Assange responded to this. I think this was in
15 or 16?
16, because it was, or 7, I'm not sure now. It's after the elections, I think.
Oh, okay.
Or, it's 2016, 2017. People can check it out for themselves on YouTube. And Julian Assange says, like, if you're asking me if I'm with Clinton or Trump, that's like asking me if I'm with syphilis or gonorrhea. I'm for neither. And so the point being in that is that Julian Assange is really not there to be in support of this administration or that. It is just for him to reveal Clinton's speeches, for him to reveal the NSA, for him to reveal the crimes that Chelsea Manning had leaked over to Julian Assange, which, by the way, we should remind people, what were those? It was part of it was an Apache helicopter firing and killing Reuters journalists in 2010 and other Baghdad civilians. And this is why there's the Chelsea Manning connection to Julian Assange. Which, by the way, I just want to say to this, it is that the indictment is saying that there is a conspiracy. I just said this earlier, right? But I want to add a little bit to it. That the allegation is that there's a conspiracy. Julian Assange was conspiring with Chelsea Manning to hack into these military computers.
To get
right?
a password.
Yes. Now, what journalists do not aid? You know, there are
sources.
Yeah, there are sources. If you look back at Watergate, there were many journalists who helped and aided leakers. You know, maybe not in this digital age. We are in 2019 now, so there are different ways now to aid, and that could be hacking, because Julian Assange is a genius in these areas. But as far as when it comes to digital age, but what I'm saying is, there are numerous journalists who have aided already leakers. So it's just a way to pin it down, and I don't think that there is any evidence for it, because the Obama administration had already tried to do this to get to extradite Julian Assange, and they could not find any evidence for it to be able to have Julian Assange extradited on that basis.
They felt like they didn't have a strong enough case on the basis of the First Amendment. They were willing to pursue Julian Assange, but they felt that they couldn't go this far. Well, now it looks like Trump's going to take it another step further. This ball got started under Obama.
Yeah, a Democrat, right? A Republican now.
Yeah. Well, and Obama is known that one of the biggest accomplishments he had was to really close down the space for whistleblowers. He had gone after media whistleblowers and like that. And again, we are seeing just a continuation of that.
Let me just say, it's the Espionage Act. I just wanted to say
Right.
that it's under this that they're trying to, and they are using to indict.
And that is important, because, again, people are like, oh my gosh, the white nationalists are coming, the fascists are coming. But what's really happening to me that really is so worrisome, that is not my biggest concern. Like, that is a concern. But my biggest concern is our existing state using things like the Espionage Act openly to basically, and the Espionage Act was back in 1917, around World War I, started then to basically say you can't get in the way of any of our military operations. You can't try to interfere with people who want to get into the military, and we can accuse you of conspiring with the enemy if you do things like that, and you can be exiled, or you can be given the death penalty, deported, or given the death penalty, or put in jail. And the Espionage Act really was the starting act for the Red Scare, the Palmer raids, all those things that we talked about in our the episode around 1918, the Seattle General Strike. This was the start of a major wave of repression done by the U.S. state, and that is actually what I am most worried about, is when you see the attack on immigrants, when you see the rise of state racism and racial profiling of so-called terrorists, Muslims, and again, of course, the continued issues of our prison system, and the continued extension of wars into the Middle East, wars into Africa, and now the various ways in which corporate powers and state powers are conspiring together to limit the ability to exercise really true free speech. And if you try to exercise it by exposing their crimes, then they put you in jail. Whereas the people who essentially lie and hide crimes, which is generally the mainstream media, they get exalted and are able to kind of continue to spread what has been called fake news, but really what it is just propaganda for states that are just rogue states, and our country in particular. So I feel like there is something very worrisome. The biggest worry I have is the strengthening of our state to control its citizens, and that to me is really what defines this time. I mean, the teacher strike wave is very good. The stuff that's happening in France, and now a version of it and happening in Algeria, those are good, but at the very same time, you see the state looking to cap things down, and I think they know what they're doing. I think they know there's another economic crisis coming. I think they know they're going to have to crack things down again, and I feel like they're setting up the conditions for being able to do that. I mean, it might sound like a conspiracy, but that's how I feel. I do feel like they're laying groundwork for being able to put people in their place if people should feel like they really want to resist.
I want to speak to my friends that I have been having this discussion with. If you're watching this, well, thank you for watching this or listening to this, my friends. But I do want to try to challenge my friends who are socialist Democrats, Democrat socialists, excuse me, the other way around, or consider themselves to be progressives, because I have been waiting for some response from Bernie Sanders.
I was going to say that.
And you know, Theresa May this morning, you know, in British Parliament had said, you know, wonderful that they finally had this Julian Assange, no? And I was wondering, where is Jeremy Corbyn's response to this? You know, from part of the Labour movement, Labour Party.
I do think he actually said something. He did say something bad. Jeremy Corbyn said, "This is not good." He did say that. I'm not saying he did tweet something or something like that.
It's only fair to make sure that we don't credit.
But you're completely right about Bernie Sanders. I haven't heard.
I have it from Kamala Harris and from
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Like, what is going on? Like, I've at least I haven't heard. If today, marking today, Thursday, it has, then I have been mistaken. But I have not heard, and I've been listening to the news all day.
I don't think we're going to hear anything
on
from
KPFA. So, and to other podcasts. So, where are they? And this is why what I'm trying to get at is to tell my friends that this is why I'm not a part of the Socialist Democrat movement when I had voted for Bernie Sanders back in 2016, because I largely see that it's another wing of trying to look good in front of the eyes for other people, to not appear to completely radically drastically different from the Democrats. And that is a scary thing, because if you're trying to be a radical in this system, trying to overthrow this system, or trying to change the system, as most of my friends will say, then we need to stick to our guns and be having strong positions and speak out when it comes to these sorts of things, and call out our leaders or the people that we are inspired by, or the people that we had faith in, and call them out for what it is. We have to say that this is not how I stand by, and I'm not going to put my faith in someone that hasn't these same values as I do. And if we care about press freedom, which this conversation has been largely about, even on CNN and the New York Times, and if we care about making sure that globally now we don't have a government aligned with themselves, because anyone can be extradited with this now, then we need to make sure that we take care of our own, which are the people who are going to leak information. What anyone is, or leak information, or speak against the government, or
expose the government.
Expose the government. Yeah, thank you. And So that's my message to my friends. It's what I'm trying to get at, and this is why I'm largely disappointed with this. Of course, I've always will say, just to admit, that I have never claimed to be a democratic socialist, or I've never claimed to be a Democrat at all. I'm actually non-party affiliated in Miss California, so I vote. So that's just transparency. But what I'm trying to say, I did vote for Bernie Sanders, I will say, and it just concerns me that, and I as well supported AMLO, and so I'm just concerned, where are our leaders?
Yeah, and I'm going to say right now that I'm prepared to eat crow if Bernie Sanders or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez come out and say, you know what, this is wrong. I'm not expecting them to come out and chain themselves to a place or anything like that, but I want to hear them say, this is wrong, what's happening with Julian Assange. He shouldn't have been taken. He shouldn't have been pulled, like, from this place where he had asylum. Like, these rules that the UN makes up about political asylum, they're all a joke as well. But those rules are being broken right now. Even the UN has said you can't go in there and do this. When a person has political asylum, there's a certain, you can't just say, well, we don't want to give you asylum anymore. So now, here come your enemies. Now they're going to come in and take you. That is actually that's against UN conventions and things like that. I don't believe that those things. I believe they do things all the time like that, but their own capitalist rules are being broken right now.
He should have sought asylum with the Mexicans.
Okay.
I'm kidding. That was let's stick to the
but I'm predicting right now that we're not going to hear anything from Bernie Sanders. We may even hear him say, "Good, get Julian Assange. The guy's a criminal," or some version of that. And I don't think we're going to hear anything from. I'm going to say we're not going to hear anything from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If we do, I'm prepared to say, I was wrong, and I'm going to take at least a second look to say maybe they're doing something.
They have to be careful. They're running for president. It's all about
if they're being careful, right?
Yeah.
And let's be clear that Republicans and Democrats are united in being glad that Julian Assange might be coming back here in chains.
Oh, yeah.
They are both there. If he comes back here like handcuffed, they're going to be like standing ovation to the CIA and to the NSA for making this happen. And thank you for the British for working with us. And to the Ecuadorians, the Ecuadorian government. Another socialist president, basically helping the U.S. state. So it's, let's see what they do, but I'm predicting nothing from Sanders, nothing from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I think once again it's going to show that there's nothing there for any socialist to be interested in.
Mm-hmm. Well, the liberals, specifically the Democrats, they have said that they feel as if he deserves what he deserves because they're largely resentful
yes.
for having WikiLeaks having had revealed which the
truth of the Democratic Party. They were resentful
lots of things
the pay-to-play scheme that was exposed, of her ties to Goldman Sachs, of the fact that they showed that Bernie Sanders had the election stolen from him, or at least that the DNC had conspired against him. They were mostly upset that he had revealed true things about the Democratic Party. But I think the thing that Democrats and liberals got upset about were not like little sideshow things about one person being connected. They were about big items, like big illegalities, big criminality, big corruption being exposed. And they didn't like it. Yeah. And it was all true. It's all true. So I don't know what to tell you if you're a liberal and you don't like the fact that your side, when it gets exposed as being corrupt, you want to go after the people who expose that. You should be thanking them and saying we've got to improve this. We have to make this better. But
yeah,
what are you going to do, liberals?
Yeah, and the other point I wanted to make was that I don't. Did I say this already? That no government should make any should hide under some. That Sweden right now is involved in this, which is considered a very progressive country, and no government should try to have some way to try to find a way to extradite him to the country and then extradite to the USA. This is causing favors for another country for the USA. This isn't how things should run. And if there was, as there's an allegation against Julian Assange, I think it should be investigated if this woman
around the sexual harassment and rape, the accusations of rape.
I do think that should be respected and there should be an investigation to it. I have suspicions around it. Not so much because I don't believe the person coming forward, as much because tied to that there was to try to have Julian Assange then from Sweden to extradite it to the USA. So it's
Right.
it's like it's not. It's,
What's
it's,
your
it's-
agenda?
yeah, it's tainted. So and I think that he should just be taken back to his country if there's going to be any sort of court criminality against him. But that's not how this country or this globe works without it.
Right. Because they were going to use that as a way of silencing a person who has been damaging to the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have any.
I think that's it. You know, let's see how it plays out. And
I mean, this is very quick news. It's not much that can be revealed.
yeah, and I would just say, you know, I think everyone should be opposed to what's going on, and we'll have to see what sort of things come of it in terms of if there's actually more statements from the left that try to, like, you know, stop things, petition drives. I don't know what sort of things we would do, but he is somebody who needs to be defended.
Yeah.
So.
And this goes back to your larger conversation as to why anyone,
Right.
not just
Right.
someone that is speaking
Yes.
facts.
I do.
You want to speak to that?
Yeah, like this. He is the real version of Alex Jones. Like Alex Jones is sort of whatever he's doing.
Comparable.
But I'm sorry, but when they go after him, they're creating the basis for going after people like Julian Assange, and that the left has to understand that. So but step by step, the noose is. I just feel like the noose is being tightened on us, and each time we let them get away with it, it makes it that much harder for us to breathe.
I will just add that if anyone is interested, I invite anyone to go to watch the deposition of Alex Jones and see that he has finally admitted he has a psychosis. I just don't like Alex Jones.
But
I stand for freedom of speech,
Freedom of speech,
freedom
and
of speech,
press, and stuff like that, yeah.
and for the freedom of the press. I stand for not censorship. Yes. I just have criticisms, and this is my opinion, about Alex Jones. I don't like him. And he has finally admitted that he has a psychosis. And his lawyer even said, in court, I should say, that what he was doing was a theatrical display on his show, or something to the likes of that. Like, that he is just performing for his audience.
But let's be clear, the real outcome of this was not about a deposition and Sandy Hook. The real outcome of all that has been a chilling effect on the internet for independent voices.
But Andy, as well, you shouldn't, stupid people also just, I'm not talking about being censored, shouldn't stupid people also think not to speak and ruin it for the rest of us?
Well, but
Goodness.
no one, if you want to get somebody for stupidity, then why do we let any of these people in the mainstream media speak? Like,
I'm not just saying that anyone else, like I'm sure there are
They
also
all-
stupid people on CNN, no?
yeah, if stupidity was illegal, then probably most people, none of those people in the mainstream
I'm
media.
not saying that stupidity should be illegal.
Well, what you're saying, but you
I'm
can't,
just saying that stupid people ruin it.
no.
for us.
That
implies-
it's not Alex Jones that made this happen. It was used as an excuse to basically shut things down as a system. The people who ruined it, as Google and Twitter and the U.S. government, they ruined it. There was actually this notion. There used to be this notion that the internet was going to be this space for all of us to, this kind of community.
Right. Yeah.
And guess who ruined that? It wasn't Alex Jones and his crazy Sandy Hook stuff. No, it was the people who, well, it was started by the government, with DARPANet and stuff like that.
Right.
But it's these people who so-called said, we're building social medias, we're building this network for making the community together. That's all crap. What they're doing is they're tightening the community into one, pro-corporate. As long as you say what we want you to say, then it's fine. But if you don't, we have no place for you here. Mm-hmm. So that's the people who's ruining it.
Yeah.
So.
I agree. On principle, I agree. I just would like to hear you say you don't like Alex Jones. Maybe you'll say it.
I don't know him, but he's a nutty guy.
I don't know him.
I don't know
him.
And
Look,
I don't
that is
agree.
how Trump responds. I don't know Julian Assange.
You got me. That's funny. That's good. I watched his show, and I saw what he said.
I don't know him, though.
I think about 9/11. Yes. I think about vaccinations. I've got real questions about that.
Right.
I think about certain stuff he said about water, and I can't remember what it was. But there are real things, and I wonder about chemtrails. Okay, There are real
I wonder
things
about this as well.
Yeah, there are real things that I think people said on his show that was like, I have to look into that. Okay, but he's on the right. And I just don't like. I don't like the state coming in to shut people like him down because I know they're going to come after us as well. That's my issue. So it's about defense. It's about defending the right to speak your mind.
Well, I agree. On principle, I agree that censorship should not have a place in our society.
Yeah.
So I stand by that principle.
And apparently I made the same mistake as Trump today.
I don't know him.
I don't know that guy.
I wanted to say something else, but we were distracted by that joke.
That was good. You got me on that one.
What was it? I was going to say add something about press freedom and everything. The internet. It was just about the internet. I think as if net neutrality was in discussion recently. But you're right. I do think that the internet was intended for an open space for us all to have freedom of information, however we choose to look it up, right? It's just the private sector has definitely hijacked this open space and has used it to its advantage.
And the state is using it to survey us and to surveil us as well.
Yeah.
So it's the corporations using it to restrict what we can say, and the state using it to control what we actually do and to monitor us. So they might have said it was an open, free space. They never had any intention for it to be that way because it can't be that way under capitalism. They said that same thing about the radio. They said that same thing about television, that it'll be all these things. Every time they shut it down, because that's how capitalism works.
Yes. Ay, Dios mío, bueno.
I know.
You see? That's what happens when you trust the government to have these monitor controls.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be very careful because I know, and we have to discuss something similar to this, which is about
gun control.
Soda tax.
Soda tax.
And remember we had this.
I am against all those soda taxes.
And then cigarette banning and
I'm against that.
And just because it's an aligned
Yes,
with just control of certain.
And also, what attack who pays for it? Which class pays for these so-called sin taxes? It's not the rich. It's primarily done on the basis of workers. So those are some things. But that's
what
another issue.
Macron was trying to do, to try to curb the pollution.
Yes.
And to higher gasoline prices.
Yes.
And that's why people were like, well, no, hold on, it's falling on us.
Right.
Why don't you do something about the environment using the people who are at the top?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, that's a good point.
Anyhow, so we will see. What is the next topic?
I believe that I have two friends who've been down at the border at a refugee camp on the southern border, along the border between Texas, I believe, and Mexico.
Can you say their names?
Darylyn and Bruce. Bruce has been here previously. He's a socialist who had done an interview with us before, and they've agreed to do an interview about their experiences there. And so I think we're going to be doing that one next week.
Yeah, and I like them both. So.
Yeah, and Darylyn is a colleague, coworker who we've been
amazing.
active in the union together, and has helped me actually stay sane while trying to do labor work, union work, and getting nothing done. But try to keep your head above water.
I think everyone will like Darylyn. She is wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already seen Bruce, but I'm just looking for our new guest. She is very calm and collected. I like her very much.
Yeah.
So thank you. So we'll have a topic for that as well. But as well as I had said from the beginning of this video, I hope that we will discuss Algeria sometime.
Yeah.
This is going to continue. I truly think there is something going on in Africa that has been largely ignored by the media, and that we should try to cover it because, again, it always comes that the African countries happen to be largely ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were commenting that I was dressed well today, but look at my cuffs. My cuff is done.
Oh.
I don't even know how to dress. So
if you choose to add the what we were recording prior to me saying what's left, the intro to what's left, then I think listeners will know what you're referring to.
Yes.
All right. So for our new listeners and our supporting listeners, please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share. Best of all, share. You can find us on 5 platforms. You can find us on YouTube, You can find us on iTunes. You can find us BitChute, Google Play, as well as Stitcher. Please rate, review, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much for our listeners, and I hope that you also will check us out next week.
Yep. See you next week.
Ciao. So that's why I sit here, isn't it?
That's good.
All right. All right, Andy. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm stressed about apartment hunting and stuff, but
Oh, I apologize.
thank you. Well,
You look quite well for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't as hard a roll today.
Well, I'm commenting like this is how you go to jiu-jitsu.
This is how I go to work.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you put your clothes on afterwards.
Right. I mean, in jiu-jitsu, I got a gi. I got like gear.
Yeah.
I wouldn't roll in this. Yeah. So.
Oh, well. Normally you come sweaty, drenched.
Right. It was, yeah.
Today I thought you went to
Today,
the office.
yeah, it was a little easier. Yeah.
I like it though.
Yeah. Thank you.
We're not keeping that footage. That was really just me sincerely asking you
I
questions.
hear you. No. Yeah.
Unless you want to.
We'll see.
So, I am doing well, by the way. Thank you for asking.
Sorry. I'm just
kidding.
preoccupied.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. We're just okay. It's such a joke.
That's good though. That's good. Put me in my place.
No, Andy. You always run to those defaulted areas of your brain.
That's
don't
good
think
defense.
like
I can play there.
No. All right.
All right.